Hi, my name is Lesley Silverman. I'm the head of new tech at United Talent Agency here in Los Angeles, and I'm super excited to get to moderate this panel this morning. And it was that last session was a great lead up for this panel. So we're just gonna start with introductions. Tell me who you are, where you work, what you do there, and I'll start right here.
Awesome, my name is Natascha. I'm the CMO of MVP Interactive. Go Bruins, I'm glad to be here today. So I'm a storyteller. Started off my career storytelling, breaking news for a global news network, but now I don't use pen and paper, I storytell through activation. So at MVP Interactive, we create experiences for consumers and fans using holograms, augmented reality, AI. So we're really making passive advertising active and putting that fan in the experience. So excited to be here and talk with my fellow panelists.
Nadia?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Nadia Tseng. I'm an SVP of Open World. Open World is a marketing agency that helps game developers, publishers, and brands market to gamers using a lot of really unique community-driven platforms. Prior to this, I was a baseball agent, a marketing baseball agent at CAA who loves baseball, loves sports, but did feel like I was missing this sort of ability to innovate and reach a younger audience, which really drew me to the gaming space, and I'm happy to be here.
Gareth, Leeding, Chief Strategy Officer at Livewire. We're a gaming marketing business focusing on the next-gen attention. We break that into two different parts. The first is next-gen audiences, so looking at how we can help brands reach and unlock those younger audiences in interactive and immersive and playable spaces, but then also looking at the next-gen transition in platforms, so unlocking gaming properties like Fortnite, Roblox, PUBG, Asphalt, and much more beyond that.
So if you're a student in this room, this group is looking into how to tap into you. So they're probably gonna have questions for you at the end of this panel. So I just wanted to quickly ask, since this panel is next generation entertainment, how does each of you define innovation as it relates to your role in your company? So I'll start here with Natascha.
Awesome, well that's a great question because for me, 10 years ago, innovation was one definition, and today it's completely different. We were talking earlier with Gareth, where I don't know if you all remember the Pepper robots, where they were small, little, 3-foot tall robots with a tablet, and a lot of financial institutions bought them because they thought that was going to be the wave of customer service. But if you really step back and think, who walks into a bank, who took the time to leave their house and go into a bank, was probably not a person that understood a little robot that would come up and offer customer service. So when I think about innovation, I really think about what does innovation mean for that audience, and for next generation, it's all about that personalization and making sure that that consumer is at the heart of that journey for that brand. And so using immersive technologies, maybe sometimes it might not be the right technology, and sometimes tech is not needed, but really is making sure you know that audience and using technology that speaks to their voice, but also the brand's voice, but also speaks to them and that they can understand and relate to.
That's perfect, ensuring that product market fit. Nadia?
Yeah, and similarly, what you were talking about is thinking the consumer at the center of everything. It's community, same thing, at the center of everything that we do when we're thinking about marketing to younger audiences. And so for me, innovation is deeply understanding the emerging platforms that serve these communities. I think obviously there is the tech layer to all things innovation, but in my opinion, how you're injecting that into how you are honoring these younger communities is really where innovation lies for our company.
I guess the build that I would add on that, which I think is interesting in the context of how we can unlock innovation for brands, is the reference of Peppers is interesting because it's innovation for innovation's sake. There's an argument in places. And actually the way that we look through the lens of innovation is how can it be, yes, innovative, doing new things, but it needs to have effectiveness attached to it. So we put a lot of focus on making sure that the work that we do from an innovation perspective delivers on brand metrics, uplift, consideration, but then is also scalable as well. And so you don't end up just with a PR release, and actually you're driving brand value as well.
So let's take this out of philosophy and into real life. Can each of you maybe share some examples of recent projects that you've worked on? What were the unique elements? What was the consumer response? And how did you engage these audiences?
one you want to start?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So we talk a lot about emerging platforms, and we have a lot of really interesting tools and access to really help enrich brands or game developers and publishers and how they understand their communities. One of those tools is a Discord product. We've been helping Riot and Riot Music a lot. And as part of what we can glean from their Discord community, and just for those who may not be fully aware of Discord, Discord for a long time has been thought of as a very endemically, it's a platform for gamers. It's kind of like a Slack. You can do quick comms, you can create voice chats, do all these things. It's very endemic to gaming, but has since really grown outside of the gaming space, but really to be the gathering place for your super fans, whether that be for musicians, whether that be for games, anything.
How many people in the room are using Discord? Wow, fantastic, okay.
That's why we're going to ask you guys questions. But it's refreshing, because I think we speak on a lot of these usually. That is to us, usually educating on these topics, but I think a lot of you guys already understand it, so hopefully we can be additive and add things that you guys don't know. But yeah, so we were helping Riot, and as part of what we can glean is not just gaming behavioral data, but also music listening data. And so for those who may be big fans of Riot and League of Legends, music is a very, very integral part to how they are thinking about where they sit in the culture at large outside of just gaming. Due to these music behavioral data, we're able to sort of glean what is your community listening to and over-indexing on listening to than the general population, right? So we were able to help Riot identify a few key artists that were way over-indexed within their server, one of which being Linkin Park, who ended up being very involved in one of the more recent Worlds. So, it's being able to go beyond just, gathering data and behavioral data is nothing new, but really being able to tap into where these communities are most passionate. That's really your most valuable fan at the end of the day. So being able to be in there and understand that, and then be able to honor them based on those behaviors, I think has been really special. And so that Riot one is a really good example for us.
That's really surprising too. Anyone else want to share an example?
I can do. We recently, who in here has seen the film Red One? It dropped just before Christmas, features The Rock.
More Discord users.
Yeah. The plan around the marketing for that film from a perspective of trying to reach next-gen audiences, we really dialed into Roblox as a platform for us to be able to unlock. We identified one of the top 3 games on Roblox that had hundreds of millions of players over the course of a month, but over 1 billion players lifetime. That game was Anime Defenders. We took the IP from the film, the storyline, the assets, the props, recreated it in Anime Defenders for a in-game integration that ran for 3 weeks, 21 days. The storyline was baked in. Players were able to get UGC. You were able to talk to The Rock in the from the film in the experience from an NPC perspective, able to get UGC items, the clothes that were worn in the film. And what we saw off the back of it was, because we'd chosen such a high-performant game on Roblox, we didn't need to bring the audience to the game. It was more making sure that the experience was fit for the audience and native to the audience. And we ended up getting 163 million players of the game in that 3-week period. Video views were 300 plus million of the trailer, and then the content that we'd baked into the experience. And the brand engagements were over 8 billion by the time that we finished. And that was because of the game mechanics, the game loop that we built in there. There was, for you to complete the experience, you had to kill 500 snowmen. And so...
So it's fun.
It's fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're going in there and you're bringing the fun parts of the film to life and making it really engaging. And so when we look at this evolution, this transition of what audiences are expecting, they're expecting playable, immersive, interactive experiences. Using a platform like Roblox enables you to do that, moving that audience from a passive, just watching experience into an interactive one.
I promise I'll stop doing this, but how many Roblox users in the room?
Okay. So with innovation, I think one thing I really want to touch on, especially when using new technology, is the nostalgia and really that emotional connection. So one of my favorite experiences, or just gives you chills, is I don't know how familiar a lot of you are with high school football in Texas. It's kind of a big deal, and Nike was sponsoring all the teams out there and releasing their uniforms, and they were trying to look for what way can we really capture. So at the Dallas Star, where the Cowboys train, inside the locker room, we built a hologram display inside, and every team came in, the lights went down, and out of the ground, a player with their uniform, a hologram, came out. And the emotions of those kids was as if like, it was incredible. They just started cheering, chanting. It was incredible. And each team, same thing, same thing, same thing. And phones were up. Like, it was like the best advertisement for my company. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But it was that moment, right, that the unexpected was used, but we took that emotion, that connection with that team, the connection that they had with the brand, and it was like a perfect marriage between the brand, the teams, and using technology in the right way to have that emotional response to each. Like, they were like jumping. I wish I had the video, but it was just like this energy that you couldn't create without using that technology. Like, if a person came up, it was a little bit, but it was just that emotional piece where it was like came out of nowhere and everyone as a team was like, we're going to win this year. So I think that was one thing that's really important, is the nostalgia and emotion, and is really important to use and think about when you're using technology to create these experiences.
That's a perfect segue. So I was actually going to ask, what has technology enabled in the past several years that wasn't possible before? We talked about some flops, maybe robot, coming out to greet customers, and some successes. But I want to just zero in on the technology a little bit. Are there advances that have kind of changed the tools that you get to play with in your work? Gareth?
Yep. So from my side, I think the evolution that we've seen in experiences like Fortnite and Roblox is enabling brands to go and create immersive experiences. And I think when you think about entertainment as a property, as a vertical, that idea that you can transition away from or build on IP that is a passive experience, you're watching it, and build it into an interactive experience and enable people to go deep into the IP and experience it in a different way. The way that these technologies are enabling that, whether it's new skins in Fortnite, whether it's building worlds in Roblox, whether it's having UGC that people can go and wear and wear the brand as they're doing it. These things didn't exist 5-10 years ago. We're at a fast pace when it comes to the evolution of those. And I think it's all good, and I mentioned this earlier, but it's all good when you think about the context of innovation and technology being available, but the reporting side of it is so important as well to prove the value of the work that you're doing. And so, just last week or 2 weeks ago, Fortnite announced that, we can now see geolocations for all of the people that are playing the experiences that brands have built, right? Like, that means for the last 2-3 years, brands have been building it not knowing the people that are watching it. And now to have that data enables you to have a much stronger story for proving the value of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think when I think about, this consumer, and you're talking about the expectation is now not that you can be effective by just allowing me to be a passive consumer of what you're trying to market to me. I think a lot about the roots of like Twitch culture, live stream culture. And if you think about those platforms, or you think about those creators who are on those platforms, it's their full-time job. They stream 8 hours a day. They have a schedule. There is not a lot of like polish going on when you are trying to play game to game and all these things. But what that technology has allowed is a two-way communication. What chat means to the culture of gaming, live stream, etc., that means all of a sudden you are not passive, you are part of the content. And so now the expectation is that you can't just passively try to sell me something. I need to feel like I'm a part of it. So I think your immersive experiences around Roblox and all the UEFN stuff is really valuable, but also like, and it's not just Twitch, although I think they were one of the first to do it. You're seeing all of these other existing and emerging social media platforms really have to find ways to allow there to be two-way communication, or allow you to feel like you are participating in the content that is coming your way.
And sometimes with this, I think people that are using the technology today didn't know it was available 10 years ago, right? When I was pitching holograms 12, 15 years ago, they thought we were talking about the back of a baseball card, right? And now, I talked to my 14-year-old niece and I was like, well, I used to have like a landline. What's that? So you in a different conversation. I think one of the things that really was a game changer was, it's funny, I always laugh, the QR code's back, right? We always laugh, why do we have this QR code? But COVID really implemented that in a way where before you used to have to download an app to do an augmented reality experience. But that's where web AR came. And you might not even know you're doing it, but you don't have to download the app. You go to a site. It's now the user's creating their own experience, whether with their own content, without having a barrier to entry, which is that app. And just recently I was at South by Southwest, and there's a company out there that's wants to get rid of the QR code, and partnering with broadcasters and whatnot and teams and venues called RI Code, you can just put your phone up to a screen, and your favorite athlete is wearing that shirt as they walk down before game time, and that brand will pop up and you can go to that website and buy it. And so it's creating that seamless experience for the user without even knowing they're using this new technology. But I think that's where the advancements comes, is continuing to break that barrier to entry, making it seamless for the user, but also enabling that next gen user to be a part of that content and be a part of the story.
Yeah, so we're talking a lot about the fan, the user, the customer. Who is this customer? How do we understand today's audience? And it feels like we're in sort of a unique territory. We talked about this like desire for personalization. So tell me a bit about how certain models of engagement maybe no longer work, and there are new models for engaging this audience, and who is this audience?
Yeah, I'm happy to kick this one off. So look, I think about traditional commercials, linear television. Here's the script, here is the talking points, plug in X celebrity, and boom, I can put this commercial on these networks and buy those ad spaces. And I actually think from a brand perspective, that's also how they feel it is, right? Here's my comms team, here's the perfect speaking points, and here's how it goes. But look, I think to what we're all talking about is the expectation of the next gen fan and community person expects a lot more. And I think we think about the evolution of platforms, right? Once upon a time, Instagram was king or queen, with a lot of, but it's all about the curation of the absolutely perfect version of your life. Facetune, and I think there was a really big fatigue around that as the younger generation started to come up, and then here comes TikTok. People are being more off the cuff, people are being less polished, and now that is the expectation when you are consuming media from your favorite influencers, that's what you're expecting. So when you're a brand or you're any company that is looking to engage them, the traditional, here are the talking points from my comms team from X blue chip brand that actually needs to be said perfectly within this, just not gonna work. So actually a lot of my day-to-day is being the cultural translator, as I like to call it, between a brand who is really, really eager to hit this market, but for 99% of their company or careers have only been using a more traditional marketing model. So it's figuring out a way to honor whether it be creator or partner that you are working with, but not just honor them, honor those communities that you are trying to reach, right? Again, it all comes back to the consumer, the community, being at the center. And so I think that, again, that's why a lot of us do these jobs to be those cultural translators, because I think some brands are doing it quite well, but we have a lot of people knocking on our doors being we know we need to reach this, we don't know how to do it, and please help. So yeah, I think that there's been a really compelling evolution in a way that I find to be quite refreshing and something that makes me really enjoy what the younger consumer expects, because they're not here for BS. They're going to read right through you. And gamers specifically, if you don't speak to them the way that they are used to being spoken to, or you try to come in you know better, good luck trying to win them back in the future. So I'm sure Gareth can understand that too. But yeah, so that's just my perspective.
How many gamers in the room? Okay. A lot of us. Great. I
think to build on that as well is when there's 3.2 billion gamers globally playing on average for 8.5 hours per week, average age of 36, 37 globally, I think that scale is there. And I think a lot of people maybe are still in that mindset of, teenager in the bedroom, and actually it's a much broader, more open audience. One of the, we recently did a piece of research that was out in market called Game Time is the New Prime Time. And what we established from that research is that the prime time slot, that 5 to 7 p.m. on a Saturday, in general on the weekends, has now become a co-play moment. And so when you think about that co-play moment, that's families coming together that traditionally would be, watching The Voice or watching a film together. That time now has transitioned to become the moment that you're playing Fortnite or Roblox with your kids as a family moment. And there's so many benefits that we saw off the back of it. Yes, there's skill benefits in terms of communication and teamwork, but it's also offering parents and kids a chance to talk about online safety and look at those kind of elements as well. And so when you think about it in that context, you're not thinking of gaming as just one audience. We believe that there's a gaming audience for every brand to unlock, and it's about how you think about the IP that's available to really unlock that.
I love that. Just one more thing. I always even just say it, like, we talk a lot about like gaming culture probably in our worlds. Gaming culture at this point is just transcending gaming. It is just culture at this point. You think about a lot of the Kai Cenats and those who are weaponizing these traditionally endemically gaming platforms like Twitch, but their content, maybe they're playing a game, they're bringing on musicians to talk about their music. They are weaponizing the just chatting feature. And these are now, they are looked at the cultural leaders of what is relevant to younger generations, right? And so that's where I, love that this is, I think people get really stuck on thinking of it as just like gaming, right? People think of it as a really homogenous thing. Like, it has transcended gaming at this point. It just is culture.
Yeah, there's all types of gaming. Like, I'm not a gamer. I did my Nintendo back in the day, but I do how I speak and learn.
Wordle for you? Wordle
My
counts.
husband loves Wordle. So I'll give it to him. I have a 2.5-year-old, so I'm sure I will be doing some type of
Roblox is in your future.
I'm sure something's in my future. But one thing I think for me is I always laughed the first time I learned about Twitch. It was a handful of years ago. I have an intern in the office, and he couldn't get anything done. I was like, hey, and he's always on his phone. I'm like, okay, this is, and it was an intern, it was a friend of a friend, and he had to still intern for us. So I went up to him, like, look, what are you doing? Like, I really want to help you. He's like, I'm like, what are you playing? And then so I was like, you know what, I'm going to use this to my advantage. I'm like, fine, teach me about this Twitch. Teach me about it. And I had him like sit there, I'm like, okay, put together a project of how this brand can use this for me. Because I was like, and it was that's like I first learned about it, because it's like, I can Google about it all day, but he had a channel, and it was really, so what I learned from that is, I have a lot of nieces and nephews in that age range, and they were just in town. I learned all the new teen language, the slang, and I'm like, what are you on? And it's like, I always call it man on the street. So when we build technology in our offices, if someone walked in and was just delivering something, I'm like, hey, can you come test this out? They have no idea what they're doing. And I still do that for the younger generation, because we're innovating so much. We're presenting things that they don't even know about yet. So we still need that reaction and that response to them. And it might fail. Again, we've done many things that might not work, but we still need that response reaction, especially when it's like physical things, hardware is involved, and it's not just mobile. But I think for me, I just love to learn and have those opportunities to speak to them, because I don't get that every day. I speak to 2.5-year-olds or whatnot. So for me, that's a chance to really learn from them and say, hey, this is your generation. How can we use this? How can brands be better? How can they speak to you? And that's how I've benefited from it. But I always laugh. And he did a great job. I learned about Twitch. Still was not the best intern, but I was introduced to Twitch. So
I think that's great. And I think that's a great lesson for the students in the room. The things that you're already using could help inform the future of a business and their advisory services. So go get those opportunities. Yeah, I just wanted to add too that when UTA acquired an esports business several years ago, a lot of the talent that we represented in that business were gamers who were displaying what they were doing on the internet. And now today, when I ask for clients of that group, the clients have totally changed. They're not necessarily playing games, they're just engaging an audience in their kind of day-to-day, Kai Cenat being one of those clients of ours. So really, really interesting. Okay, we're gonna shift gears a little bit, and this will be a nice preview for, I think, our next speaker, who is the Chief Product Officer of the COSM. I wanna talk about modern venues, because this is really changing the game. You think about SoFi and the Sphere in Las Vegas, and now the new Clippers Intuit Arena, and how tech-powered these spaces are. So I'm curious, what can we deliver to audiences in these new types of venues that are fun experiences, engaging experiences, and how do brands kind of speak to the customer of these new tech-infused properties and venues?
As Gareth and I were just speaking, I was saying I'd recently been to probably every single venue for a game in LA. It was hockey games for Ducks, Kings, was at SoFi, and to COSM and all this stuff. And it was interesting. I was at a couple of stadiums, I won't name names, and it's great to use innovation when you know it's gonna help the experience, right? But there was a gentleman, he's like, I just want a Coke. I don't know how this works, because there was no people, it was just technology. Then I have my 2-year-old again. I'm trying to buy a Coke. He's just hitting number 9. I'm like, I'm never going to get my order. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, I'm creating these experiences. We actually had a kiosk where you can, get a hockey stick, hit a puck, and that's the experience we're creating for in a fan zone. But I think it's a piece of looking when you come into that stadium, a fan experience is not just the game, it's also now a technology, the ticketless experience when you come in, the buying experience, the retail experience. So how I work with brands now is working with the teams, understanding the venue, understanding the opportunities, speaking to the brand, what audience within that venue do you want to capture, right? So we have these gaming walls. So for example, for baseball, you get actually a bat, there's a sensor in it, and you can hit a baseball digitally, and the brand's in there, you get a video of you playing, you could share it, there's leaderboards, you can be a part of the game. And that's a fan zone experience, that's fun experience, and then the brand gets all the data on the user, the team can get that as well, but you're adding to that experience, because what I found is the expectation for that younger generation is they want to be a part of it. The second screen's there, it's the phone. Everyone has their phone. Sometimes it's too much. One of the games I went to, every break there's a QR code to be on it, but everyone loved it, right? But it was great, but I think with the venues, it's understanding what's available, and then with the brand, it still comes down to the customer, personalizing it, and making sure you're just not using tech for tech. Like, that's my biggest thing. If you take away anything today, don't use tech to check a box. Sometimes it may not work, and just make sure that the new venues, you understand the opportunities you have, understand the audience, and make sure at the end of the day, it's the brand's voice and fun for the user.
Yeah, I think that's great.
You're the expert here, so my really dumb comment is going to be that I went to COSM last week to watch the Duke game. I have been to the Intuit Dome, and I don't know if anyone's been there. I've been to one of the Clipper game recently. They do these things where it's a 360 Jumbotron, and the players almost reach out at you. My comment would be, if we're trying to figure, let's figure out the Dramamine that maybe comes out, because I get very motion sick in these places, and maybe this is me being very old. But as I am seeing all this new tech emerge, I'm okay, I'm going to need to train myself to have different reactions to motion sensory stuff. That is my stupid comment that I. Go ahead, Gareth.
The first time I did fall VR skiing. That's my story there. But again, the content,
the sensory overload.
The sensory overload. But
I think I'd like to think about it outside of the context of the in-stadium experience. I think we're beginning to see Roblox, for example, emerge as a bottom of funnel conversion opportunity, and so. In November, Beetlejuice, you're able to buy a ticket to go and watch a film, right? Why can't you have a Taylor Swift experience where you can buy a ticket to her stadium experience? But then on the back end of it, if you've been to the stadium, why can't you have a t-shirt that's connected to that ticket that you can wear in game and have that real life t-shirt? If you buy merch in real life, you should be able to have the digital companion with it. We see that that's a $40 billion market right now, and I don't think people have been connecting the idea of loyalty, especially with IP like that, in a way that you can do purchase, pre-experience, and then post.
Fantastic. Okay, last question, and then we are going to open it up for Q&A from the room for a few minutes. I just wanted to ask, because the panel before us was around traditional entertainment, what opportunities are there for people working in more traditional entertainment as it relates to kind of this next generation innovation?
for us, I always say now, whether you're a brand or an organization, you need to be thinking about all of these things, about the technology. I mean, I can get really granular and detailed, but when you're working with retail, 3D assets, not everyone has retail play don't have a version of that, and those can't live in these new worlds, right? So I always say, think about that, but you don't have to. I was laughing with Gareth, a team I worked with at a brand. We did holograms, we did all these cool things, and I called them, and he's like, yeah, this year, we didn't do any tech, we just got water bottles, and people wanted their names etched on them. I was like, oh wow, we just really got hashed out of that RFP, but it was one of those moments where I think they knew their audience, and so it's okay, text shouldn't be used for, I think it's that story, right? It's making sure you're telling the right story, you're being genuine to the brand, because like you said very well, they will call you out if you're doing something that doesn't resonate with your brand. And I think that's the toughest thing about this generation.
Yeah.
And also the access they have to call you out if you're doing something that doesn't resonate with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're in honestly, what I think to be a really unique time. When I started at CAA, I started in the mailroom, you can imagine. Traditional entertainment, which there's nothing wrong with a lot of the traditional entertainment platforms, but everyone's like, I'm going to be the TV lit assistant, and then I'm going to run the TV department, and I want to be this, and I want to be that. And there was a whole other sector of so many other departments that I think a lot of young people just didn't even want to think about, because the big Hollywood, I work with movie stars was the end game, and it was the only game. And so I think a lot of people pursued that, which no fault to them, a lot of them are very successful, but my advice was always, and I was very lucky to work in the sports department, but my advice to people who are like, I want to work for the head of the TV department, I'm like, there's so much else out there, and actually being on the precipice or cutting edge of a newer thing, right now may not feel like the sexiest thing or the thing that is getting all of the shine, is actually going to be you filling white space and you being able to provide value much sooner than you would if you were to go into some sort of legacy industry, which, again, there's nothing wrong with that. I started there, right? But then it called me to this urge of, I think there is more out there, and I want to have higher impact on this industry that I think is moving, shaking, and growing. So I really am excited that this is now, I think we're at the place where younger people are starting to recognize that and are starting to fill really cool white space. I mean, the companies and the ideas and the things that are out there right now, are so exciting. And quite frankly, I'm not going to be the one thinking of those ideas. I'm not as plugged in all these platforms. So yeah, I think that's the really, really exciting thing for a lot of people sitting in this room.
All right. So thank you, by the way. That was incredible. And I just want to open it up. We have about 6 minutes left. Open it up to the room if there are any questions for our panelists. And we do have mics.
Your
Don't be
advice
afraid.
for us.
Yeah.
What are you playing?
Hi, thank you so much for speaking today. My name is Isabelli. It's so great to be here. I am currently an MBA student at Pepperdine, and my question is a little targeted towards early professionals. Considering the history of entertainment, its earliest form of theater being something that is an audience interactive experience, and then transitioning to today being something very luxurized and not as engaged with anymore, especially with younger audiences who prefer that interactive and personalized experience again. What would you say are some important things that early professionals should be taking into consideration to make sure that they can contribute meaningfully as entertainment continues to evolve and form?
I would say, it's one thing to be the consumer of the platform of the intern who was playing Twitch. It's one thing to be the younger person who is deeply integrated into the communities and the things that a lot of other kind of older executives are looking to do. But I also think it's understanding how to frame that information in a way that becomes valuable to the executives and the people that you're trying to work with. Because I would always think about the why, right? So if you're thinking about a group of people, or if you want to provide value with this unique experience that you have, what do you think that executive is looking to achieve by understanding Twitch? We'll just use the example, right? And then how can you help inform them based on what their goals are? I think it's a really powerful combo, because that's honestly why you're asking the intern what Twitch is all about. Because you were like, how would a brand show up here, right? I think being able to take that one step further really shows some proactive thinking that, to me, when I see young professionals, I'm really, really excited about.
All right, we're just about out of time. I think what I really take away from this conversation this morning, and thank you to each of you, is entertainment's no longer just about consumption, and neither is marketing. It's really about this participation. And this younger generation has a lot to offer us in terms of how we interact and how we engage with the end consumer more effectively and in a way that's fun. So I learned a lot, and I hope you all did too. And I just want to say thank you to UCLA. I'm an alum. We have another alum here. And thank you to Jay. And I hope you have a great rest of your day and have fun with Issa Rae.